The Buddha, freshly awakened out of the Bodhi tree, said, there is suffering. There is a cause of suffering, and there is an end. So in the few minutes I have, I'm going to explore suffering as the Buddha taught it. The contemporary issues 2,700 years ago that made the Buddha feel real suffering beyond seeing the dying man, the sick man, dead man. And then look at some contemporary issues today, in 2025 and beyond, that make suffering feel de facto, inevitable. And I remember those two reflection questions I asked. That'll be a challenge for how we embody this. And I say this with full recognition that there may be some arahants here. There may be some bodhisattvas here. There may be some once returners here. Yes, there may be some once returners here. And there are some of us who finally, recently, tasted what truth, capital T truth, feels like. So, what I found is during the time of Prince Siddhartha, he lived during the time of, and I know many of you know this already, but let's all be beginners. That's the point. This was a time of massive political, economic, and spiritual upheaval in Lumbini and surrounding metropolis and villages and settlements. For example, the tribal republics of India were collapsing at the time, giving way to more centralized kingdoms like the Magadha and the Kosala. So there were new political orders forming at that time, 2,700 years ago. Does that sound familiar? At the time, the Brahminical orthodoxy controlled full access to ritual and religious legitimacy, creating a spiritual caste system. Can you imagine that? A caste system. What is that? And caste systems still exist in the matrix today. What is that? Economic inequality was intensifying with the rise of agrarian surpluses and emerging coin-based trade. So back then, I'm sure coins felt like cryptocurrency today. 2,700 years ago. Cities were growing rapidly, drawing people into moral confusion and spiritual hunger. And many spiritual seekers were disillusioned with Vedic ritualism, maybe like my brother over there who might be disillusioned with his head down, disillusioned with something. But with disillusion with the priestly elites. Just like today, there's a nice pope, but for the recovering Catholics, where's the veracity of the priests and the cardinals and such? Even the Dalai Lama has had reputational risks recently. Where are the moral authorities? 15 years ago, you could point to a Mother Teresa or whoever. Who do you point to today? Greta Thunberg? I'm asking, who? Who? Nobody. Because it's everybody. So this was the context which the Buddha said, oh no, I'm not dealing with this matrix anymore. There has to be a better way. There is a better way. Now, let's talk about our own contemporary context before we get into the formulas, the 4s and the 8s. Today, there is no such thing as capitalism. So if you hear anybody talking about capitalism, tell them Nana said, that's dinosaur thinking. This is not my judging, comparing, or fixing mind, but it might be. We are now in what Dr. Yanis Varoufakis, the former Greek finance minister who led Greece through the 2008 IMF bailout, calls techno-feudalism. But you knew that. Techno-feudalism. So we rent space in the cloud and we pay to the overlords. Everybody here. Even if you're off the grid, there's nobody who doesn't pay something to Meta, Google, and their ilk. And if you don't, please raise your hand. I want to salute you. Where are you? I'm waiting. Online? Nobody. See? Online. Who are we paying to? So capitalism is gone. Never coming back. Where's Adam Smith? Yuval Noah Harari, Israeli historian thinker, which most people here know, has already predicted the rise of what he calls the useless class. The useless class. This is not hyperbole. This is not conspiracy theory. This is true. I remember a few months ago seeing a few members of Congress outside the Department of Education, where there was a gentleman in a brown polo shirt who wouldn't let them in. And you had a member of Congress saying, I am the sitting member of such and such. I'd never seen impotence so obvious. I'm talking about impotence in role, not person or color or party. Because we are playing by old rules. Oh, traditional democracies, what is that? They are dissolved into algorithmic feudal orders. Democracy. Tell me what it is. Anybody here? I'll wait. That's okay. I'll wait.
Voting by representation.
Where? Where? The question is, that ship has sailed. Sorry. Sorry. It's not opinion. Because to be awake is to see things as they are, not like the writer on Einstein said, as I am. We're talking about suffering. Suffering is about seeing things as they are. But if it's too much, you can kick me back to Seattle. Should I keep going? Yeah? Keep going? Even the Dharma risks becoming part of this miasma, this spiritual marketplace, the center aesthetics of awakening while avoiding truth. Namaste. Namo. Metta. I'm talking to myself, you see. Which means I'm talking to you, because you are me and I am you. Yes. And I love how you always bring the sunshine. So Hawaii is a metaphor for the light you carry. Yes, I'm talking to you. So we know for a fact now, I've just proven to you, that in the time of the Buddha, they saw coins. What are these coins? We're seeing cryptocurrency and blockchain. What is that? That's the same incredulity the Buddha faced suffering in his time, 2,700 years ago. Yet we think we have a claim to a higher order suffering just because we're in a deeper unknown. The Dharma already tells us what to do with the unknown. The unknown is all there is. The unknown is all there is. Like now, I don't know what's going to happen 2 minutes from now. I don't know who's going to walk through that door. I don't know who's going to stand up. I have no idea. And it doesn't matter. Because I face my own suffering. As I began to understand Dukkha, which is a life normally lived by unease, friction, grief, loss, disappointment, especially when filtered through the illusion of the permanence of control. The moment I started to come face to face with Dukkha, I understood my own trauma. Oh my goodness, my parents, narcissistic abuse. Wow. Oh no, you got married again, and now you're repeating your own trauma again. You were trying to avoid divorce, and here you are, realizing without your illusions, without your crutches. You just replayed your trauma. Oh, and by the way, there's a 9-month-old daughter, what to do? I can't stay. So I can't even go into the home. I spent 3 months in the cottage on the property, crying, laying on my yoga mat, saying, how and why did I get here? 90% of my friendships because I stopped lying, I stopped pretending. As Don Miguel would say, we're all liars and pretenders. Then I realized that I couldn't continue on the same way with my parents. And my siblings too. Really? Why does it have to be your loved ones? Oh, this is where my anxious attachment comes from. And I thought there was something wrong with me, Jay. Yes, there was. Dukkha. The insanity of Dukkha. Then I looked at all my corporate jobs, and I worked a bunch of fancy places, right? The Gates Foundation brought me to Seattle. I lived in Washington, D.C. The World Bank, Deloitte, Booz Allen, all that. I have a PhD, Georgetown, all that. But I realized all my jobs, narcissism, I was a common denominator. So clearly I know what I'm doing. I get hired by these nice places, but something happens midway. There was something I was projected. I'm speaking energy now, for those who are into energy. Common denominator. And the moment I started to see clearly, everything, I even looked different. Clean shaven. None of this. Because I started to understand samudaya. The cause of suffering is craving. In my case, the craving of family. Oh, I don't want to lose my family. I'm so addicted to family because my parents were divorced. So I'll put up with anything and I'll overlook red flags. And, right, I want to please. then nirodha, cessation, that there is freedom. When clinging ceases, when I stop seeking validation. Now it's very people pleasing. What do you think? What do you think? Is it okay? What do you think? What do you think? What was all that madness? And the more I embrace the dharma with the fervency of a baby. Yes, I'm looking at you. Don't look away. This is what happened. And to this day, I still grieve some of these things. But the trade-off is just incredibly rewarding. I wouldn't be sitting here with you without that dukkha that this person experienced. Great loss. No closure, giving myself closure. I'm simplifying, giving it a shorthand, because everybody understands suffering. This Sangha understands suffering. So we know that there's a way out. The way out is a Noble Eightfold Path. But it sounds academic, the Noble Eightfold Path. It's so academic, it's so frameworky, new agey, very organizational development-y, very... Let me tell you, I'm going to speak about the Noble Eightfold Path from my perspective, yes, to make it more embodied. How you doing? Right view. Right view. Right view. You're a kind man, a beautiful spirit. And so are you. Right view. Understanding the nature of reality, which is impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So the way I resolved it is, okay, I was born to these two parents, I have these three siblings, but I'm now recognizing that loving them from a distance means that my three children will not have that relationship. I'm going to grieve that. How do I resolve that? But I also understand that if I was born in Singapore, my story would be different. Even if it was to the same parents. If I was born in Mongolia, same parents, the causes and conditions will be different. So it reduced my attachment to my narrative, in as much as I grieve the people I left behind. Because attachment is suffering. What comes, comes. What goes, goes. What comes, comes. What goes, goes. You are constant. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the clouds. The sky doesn't worry about them clouds. When the sky knows it's the sky, not in a poetic way, not in a theoretical way, not in an experiential way because of time, but in an embodied way, ehipasiko. Ehipasiko. Find out for yourself. Find out for yourself. How? By starting, continuing, and if you forget, Begin again. Bhante Buddha Rakita, these are your words. Right intention. So because I was harming myself with people pleasing and those things, I got tired of that miasma, that heaviness, that constant state of discomfort. And I was doing it to myself because nobody can hurt you. Nobody can. Even on death row, your signature is needed for the thing and for that thing. Your compliance is required, even when you think you have no options. So, right intention. Because I started to be nice to myself and give thanks to the powerful Duwamish land I live on, the sacredness of the energies and the lay properties of that land, and the beaches and the trees and the parks and the hills. And I'm African, so I'm speaking from that perspective. There's some energies there. There's some energies here too in Portland. I started to realize that if I was going to treat myself very well, then it becomes very difficult for me to accept any treatment that doesn't treat me the way I treat myself. But importantly, because I'm non-harming to myself, how can I harm you? Because to harm you is to harm me first. Right speech. Yeah, I used to have a focus on polite speech, but that was ego. Because the provisions around right speech are very clear. Is it true? Is it true? Are we speaking the truth? Are you speaking the truth? Do we speak the truth to each other? But before speaking it to each other, do we speak the truth to ourselves? We all have a relationship with ourselves, whether you know it or not. We're always talking. You can't not stop talking to yourself. You find out when you go on retreat. You do, especially a samadhi retreat, right? Right action. From which lens do you do what you do? To perform? Or are you the same with or without cameras? You know, prior to 2020, we all had masks, right? Your mask for work, your mask for your sangha, your mask for your colleagues, your mask for happy hour, your mask for your pickleball team. And when we were all on timeout, that forced veracity. These masks don't exist anymore, which is why the news cycle is the way it is. Truth, 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 popcorn, truth, 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 truth. We are in the age of veracity, what the New Ages call the age of Aquarius, right? Or the Hindus call Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga. Right livelihood. So I was a corporate guy. Corporations are fine. Nothing against corporations. I'm not one of those, right? But I found that shifted for me because of my experiences, unique experiences. So it changed what I did. And to coaching people based on the things that I went through. This is what I do for a living and pay for my kids' college and all that. This is the dharma. Dharma yachami. Right concentration. What are the things I'm focused on during the day? Because where attention goes, energy flows. And we know from quantum physics the observer effect. What is observed shifts from potential into actuality. Right mindfulness. How do I deepen? You can only meet people as deeply as you've met yourself. You can only meet another as deeply as I have met myself. This is what the Rastafari mean when they say I and I, which is why I have adopted that as my pronouns. I and I, indivisible, non-dual. Grateful to the Rastas in Montego Bay. So as we come to the end of this, I'd love some reflections from you. We're in this together. Techno-feudalism is a fact. The useless class is another fact. Demographic changes, whether their birth rate's declining or what have you, another fact. Post-truth politics, another fact. And let me just say this, the hate we see is not at a societal level. There's nothing wrong with the world. The world is the way it is because of you and I. If you are not at peace with yourself, what business do you have to talk about world peace? You're part of the war. You're at war with yourself. This is not opinion. Gandhi said, my life is my message. If he hadn't adopted ahimsa himself, how could he say the British are our friends? The world is the way it is because of me and you. So if we want the world to change, as the great teacher Jiddu Krishnamurti said, you are the world. It's not about changing institutions and the politicians and such. This is the first revolution. Gil Scott Heron said it. It will not be televised because, does anybody know why? Anybody remember? Because it's going to be internal. So this is the public square. This is how you fight. Soldiers of the Dharma. Because the biggest battle that I've had to fight was against the demons within me. Dukkha. Where are you resisting dukkha through distraction, denial, or addiction? What craven keeps masquerading as ambition, justice, or even awakening? It is only the freedom that comes from the cessation of suffering that transforms the world. Some may call that love. It is love, which is why there's Kuan Yin somewhere. And so Kuan Yin for compassion. Because what I've found is when one adopts true compassion, there is an unpremeditated wisdom that is freshly emergent, that is more gangster than anything Sun Tzu, von Clausewitz, or any strategist could have written. The wisdom of the mystery of the Dharma that is effervescent when true self-compassion is present. Because when there's true self-compassion, there is no ego, no self. Therefore, there's skillfulness. There's wholesomeness. knowing the strength of the Dharma to overcome any and everything.